So people often want to know, what is custom fitting? And custom fitting is what we do here. We test products, we try and find out what the right thing for someone is in the bag. But ultimately, it's not just that, it's what should you expect from a custom fitting? Because custom fitting is a term that's been widened out quite a lot, and a lot of people out there use it. But there are different levels to it and there are different experiences. So what should you expect from a fitting, and what questions should you be asking when you go and get one? We'll give you a bit of an explanation as to those and why you need to. So everybody said that the levels of fitting differ. As a company, it's what we specialise in, it's all we do. So day in, day out, we're going to give a more in-depth bespoke service because of the nature of we fit and build, everything's built on site. We go to the extreme on things. You go to your local pro shop or a local shop which has a fitting cart from one of the brands. Ultimately the base principles of what you should get from that session are the same, but the level of detail that you're going to go into is going to be quite different because we've got 400 shafts on the wall, you have a fitting cart with 10 to 20, it's going to be a different level of detail that you can go into. However, ultimately, the reason for going to a custom fitting shouldn't be just to buy clubs. Yes, it's often an outcome of a fitting, but really the purpose of the fitting is to understand, ideally, why are you getting certain performance from your current clubs and what can be improved. And then by testing different products, validating from a data point of view what the improvements are. And then really, the fitting should be to give you that information to create an informed decision. From that point on, it's down to you. The process of the fitting is not to sell you new clubs, it's to provide you with the information that, yes, as a retailer, that we hope you then come back to us and purchase the clubs from us. But ultimately, the fitting itself is to give you that information, to give you an informed decision backed up by data, that you know what kind of difference to expect from those new clubs to what you have. But ultimately, is it worth making that investment? Value is different for everybody. Some players will say, 2 yards is worth it for a full-blown £4,000 or £5,000 set of top-end clubs. Some others would say, I need at least 10 yards to make it worthwhile me making a change. Ultimately, that is your decision, and you can only make that. The fitter isn't in a position to say, you must do this. But giving you that informed decision, that's the primary function. And really, the other bits that we're going to go into now, they're things to look for and to try and seek out during the fitting in terms of that can help you make those decisions. But the primary function, give you the information so that you know what you're getting into when you purchase those clubs. So where do you start from in a fitting? Well, having a conversation with the golfer is really key from the fitter, understanding what you want to achieve, why are you having the fitting in the first place, is there a bit of your bag that you really like to focus on, is it a single club fitting like a driver, or if we're looking at the whole bag, what's the key areas that you're looking to improve upon, are you working on in your swing? The more the fitter can understand you and your game, the better. Now this is why we take all of this data, so we take the specs of your existing clubs, and the reason being, so we get the components, the head, the shaft, the grip, length, balance, loft and lies, swing weights. So getting the DNA of your existing set gives us that benchmark to work from. So if the fitter knows what we're starting from, we can say, right, your current clubs are set up this way, that promotes this from a performance point of view, and then when we capture data we can explain why you're seeing that. That's really important, because then we can give you reasons why your performance is as it is on course. That can back up often some of the things you're maybe working on in the swing, some of the shot patterns you're seeing on course, but then also gives us that start point that we know, right, if we can't improve on this, then there's no point buying anything. Maybe that lessons is then the way forward, because that's the way to improve your game. Because improving your game, be it through equipment or giving you the information to say, right, actually I need to go and work on this in my swing, that's what we're trying to get out of this. So knowing what the components are and then getting the data allows you to say, right, here's my start line, here's my base point, we need to try and move forward from there. So if you want to see how fitting at Precision Golf here is conducted, then check out the video here. That'll take you through from start to finish, the conversations we have with the golfer, and really the reasoning we go through and the decisions that we come to based on data and backed up by performance. So if you like that, like, subscribe, hit the bell button, do all of the above, and check out all the videos on the channel as well. So the next key thing that you really should be doing when you're getting a fitting, or a lesson actually to that extent, is data. Getting the data, understanding the numbers, the ball speeds, launch angles, spins, ultimately the dynamics of the ball flight that give you the performance output. There are going to be different parameters that need to be focused on depending on which bit of the bag you look at. So it may be that you're prioritizing height and control in irons, or a lower flight for more run out in a driver. But unless you have the data, whether you're testing with, be it a TrackMan, a GC quad, there are a number of launch monitors out there of different grades and different prices. But ultimately, the person you see and the fitter or the coach that you see really should be using one of these, because without getting the background of the input data from a swing point of view, club speed, path, angle of attack, and then the output from a launch angle and a spin point of view, the ball dynamics, the ballistics of the flight, we're still going semi-blind. You might look at a ball flight and think, well, that looks quite nice, but we don't know, is it higher spin? Is it higher ball speed? How much is it carried further? Again, it's giving you the nuts and bolts of the information to make an informed decision. I keep going back to that phrase, informed decision, because that's the most important part. You need to get on course and know, right, what did I see in the fitting? What am I to expect when I go out on course? And I think understanding why these decisions are being made is really important, because you're the one that's got to buy the clubs at the end of the day. So if you don't know what it is you're getting out of that change, then you should then go back and ask some more questions. Ask loads of questions in fittings, or lessons. I would always say, throw as many questions as you can at me, because there aren't too many. If you've got a question, it can clarify a point. It can sometimes stir up a bit more of a conversation about actually why a certain club style may be more suitable than another. What are you trying to achieve from your game? Again, the better the fitter or the coach understands you and your game, the better the end result can be. But without data, you can't quantify it. It's just a kind of a random finger in the wind and go, well, that feels like it's a little bit better. And feels one element of it that's got to be nice, but we've got to see better numbers. The second part to that is, it is not just all about that total distance number, particularly when you're getting to, okay, driver, yes, potentially, but you still got to be in control and in play. So the total distance is one thing, but when you're looking at irons, fairway woods, hybrids, the bits where we're not just trying to send it up the fairway as far as possible, how the ball gets there is really critical. Because if you're playing to a par 3, we don't want the ball coming in flat and just running when it lands. We want to know that it's going to stop. We want to know that you can fly a bunker at the front of the green and keep it on the green. So the balance of the launch and the spin, the height, the angle it's coming down at, these are all parameters that we can quantify with launch monitors and data. And we can prove that it's higher, it's stopping quicker, it's carrying further. There are some numbers like, once you get above a certain speed, a 45-degree land angle, the big brands are all fitting to really key numbers on height and descent angle when you're looking at approach play. So just because a club goes further isn't the reason to buy it. It may just be because that 7-iron is cranked down to a 6-iron loft, and then by going stronger in loft you create big gaps at the bottom. So there are consequences to these numbers being out of alignment with where performance-wise on course, rather than just seeing it go a long way on a launch monitor, on course performance is really critical to getting around that course and scoring well. So again, understanding the numbers, and if you don't understand, ask. If the fitter can't explain them, then run. If they can, then they'll be able to explain why something's better, but equally speaking, why it's going to give you an important improvement in performance on course if there is one to be seen. So how do you then go about testing? Well, the reason that we have all these options on the wall, and we are fairly low in terms of numbers of places that would have these kinds of options, is that to be able to quantify what the best set of components are, which head performs best, which shaft, and the two together, being able to test the two together, that's something that obviously we've invested a lot of money in the testing scenarios, which is why our fitting fees are going to be a little bit higher than most others would be, simply the volume of options available. But dynamically testing, hitting the head and the shaft that you're going to get, that is the way of then knowing what you're going to get out of it from a performance point of view. So if you haven't actually tested the combination of head and shaft that you're going to be purchasing, then again, that's a big question mark to me. If someone just says, oh, it's okay, it'll be fine, again, that's a bit of a red flag, because we have the ability, whether it's a fitting cart from a brand where you can interchange a lot of the products now, they're getting so much better than they used to be. Yes, the range of options is far less, but the ability to test the correct head, the correct shaft and interchange them, that's improving all the time. And the offerings from the big brands and the fitting carts that most, anywhere with a retail shop should have one of those now. Your ability to test what you're actually going to get has gone through the roof in the last few years. So make sure you hit the combination of components that you're going to be purchasing. If you haven't, make sure you go back and test them. And if you can't test them, again, maybe something you want to think twice about in purchasing. So that generally gives you an idea of what you should be expecting from a fairly standard fitting, and some of the extra levels that specialist fitters will go into. Ultimately, you want to have dynamically tested the option that you're going to be purchasing to know what the output's going to be. Most places you go to with a pro shop, at a fitting centre, will then send a spec to the brand of club that it is, be it Titleist, TaylorMade, Strixon, Callaway, whoever it is, Ping, and then they will receive the built clubs from them and hand them over to you. Going to a specialist fit and build centre like ourselves allows us to go to extra details. So we can fit and build to much, much tighter tolerances. Because we have a workshop on site, that allows us to really tailor in a kind of Savile Row suit kind of way, tailor the clubs, the fine-tune the swing weights to 0.1 of a swing weight point, really dial in the shaft type, the array of options. We're not having to use the standard option shaft. We can take any head, any shaft and put them together for you. So being able to quantify swing weight, test with different grip types and sizes and grip weights to make sure that whatever you've tested is exactly the product you're going to get. And let's say that array of options, we've got all the aftermarket options, the stock options. So it does carry a premium cost. A fitting itself, because of all the kit on the walls, because of all the ability to change grips during the fitting, is going to carry a premium cost. We would charge for a full bag fitting £345. Some places give you that fitting fee back when you make a purchase. That's their call, but for us, full bag fitting is 3 to 3.5 hours, and there's advice given. We're not asking you, to come in on the premise that you're definitely going to purchase. It's that information that we provide you to then ideally purchase through us, but to make a decision from that point on. So there's also the price of the club. So a lot of places may want to kind of match RRP if they're not doing anything other than sending a spec to the brands to send to them. We would be a little bit dearer, even using stock components, because everything's hand built on site. We've got 3 club builders building tens of clubs a day rather than a factory making thousands. The tolerances and the detail is a bit tighter. So we do charge a bit of a premium for that. Because of the nature of the level of detail required. So we would be roughly £30–35 a club, potentially dearer even with stock components. However, with all the aftermarket shafts on the rack, then as long as there is the backup of the performance and the numbers to make it worth making that extra investment, then that can spread significantly stronger, potentially 30% dearer than off the rack, should you be using aftermarket head shafts, grips. That all kind of adds in. You can do kind of coloured ferrules, different grip types. So you can really customise, which can start to push that pricing up over retail. But ultimately that is then, it's up to you as to how far you go with that. If the stock components work well, that's great. It's still all about the performance. So first and foremost, you must be comfortable with what you come out with a fitting with. You must understand why what has been recommended has been recommended and what the knock-on effect for your game is going to be. But it's your choice as to what you go ahead with, and that price-wise, different people's values are different in terms of what you deem good value. But ultimately, we want any change to last. So we don't want you to be changing year in, year out. Unless you particularly want to just buy new clubs every year, then obviously that's your prerogative. But we want a change to be a long-lasting change rather than just kind of a sticking plaster on something. So make sure that what you're getting out of the fit is an understanding of what you've got, what you're going away with, and why that's going to improve your game. So hope that explains all the things that you should be looking for from a fitting, maybe some questions to ask as well. But first and foremost, make sure you understand what the results mean and why the recommendations are being in place. And hopefully you get some great golf out of it at the end.